Ms. Thomas, Rachel Thomas, 6 minutes, please.
Thank you. Ms. Tate, thank you for giving us your time today. We much appreciate it. In your opening remarks, one of the statements that you made is that that, of course, you outlined some challenges that the CBC faces. I should also outline, though, that every other media outlet in this country doesn't start off with $1.4 billion taxpayer dollars at the start of the year. So while you might look to, play a bit of a card there in terms of poor me, let's start off with the fact, and that is, compared to other outlets in this country that are conducting themselves to perform at a higher standard than the CBC in many ways, they're not starting off with that. So I think that's an important point that needs to be acknowledged right off the bat. Ms. Tate, we're here to talk about job cuts and bonuses, or you prefer to call them performance awards. And so my first question for you is, you've had 2 months to think on it. Of course, you were asked during an interview on national news, in fact, the CBC National, you were asked whether or not bonuses would be considered for executives. And you said it wasn't ruled out, essentially. And so having 2 months to think about it, have you come to a conclusion? Will there be bonuses for the executives within CBC?
Thank you for the question. I just want to clarify the reality of the obligations of the public broadcaster. Of course, we have the privilege of a very, very generous parliamentary allocation, which, by the way, has not substantially increased in over 30 years. And during that time, we have added to traditional and radio, traditional television and radio, with digital services on all platforms. So we're operating with the same budget that we had 30 years ago. And where we get the same pressure as our colleagues in the private sector is from, in fact, the third of our budget that we earn in commercial revenues, which are absolutely vulnerable to the vagaries of the market. And that's the place where we have challenges.
Ms. Tate, in the interest of time, could you please answer my second question? My question, there wasn't actually two, there's just one. Mm-hmm. Perfect. If you could answer it, thank you.
So to the question of performance pay, as I have said in my remarks, the performance pay is a critical part of total compensation.
My question was just whether or not you would be giving it. Will you be giving bonuses to executives?
My response to that question is to say that we have a process, a rigorous process. It is not my decision to award performance pay. It is, in fact, the decision of the Board of Directors, and that decision comes at the end of the fiscal year. We have another 2 months before we reach the end of the fiscal year. And as I have also said in public, everything is on the table. So we will see at the end of fiscal year, based on results and where we are financially.
So as the CEO, you do not make the decision. You have no say in whether or not bonuses are granted.
All of the management team measures and analyzes our results on an annual basis, which are published very clearly in our
CEO,
in the quarterly reports.
You have no say in whether or not bonuses are given.
All of the management team presents to the Board of Directors the results of our year against KPIs, key performance indicators that have been tracked throughout the year, and based on the analysis and the results, the Board of Directors makes its decision. I should just point out, perhaps of interest, for example, last year, we did not meet 2 of our KPIs, and our bonus level was reduced. I'll go to my next question
now. I realize that you'll do your best to talk out the clock, so I'll just kind of keep us going along here. My next question is this. Those KPIs, would you table those with this committee?
They're public in our annual report.
Perfect. Thank you. Based on the metrics that are used then, last year, you gave out $16 million in taxpayer-funded bonuses to the staff. That was an average of $14,000 to staff members at the CBC. Most Canadians don't even see half of that in a bonus, not even a quarter of that in a yearly bonus. $14,000 was the average amount that was given to CBC staff. What were the metrics that were used in order to determine that bonus amount?
So again, the KPIs are published and they're very clearly have to do with performance of the service, for example, digital reach, for example, engagement with news in the regions, for example, performance on engagement with kids and children. All of those are published very clearly in our annual report. And I actually want to, if I may I ask, I think your number is wrong. If I want to correct the record.
I would just highlight for you that it's interesting to me because you're saying that these are the metrics, but actually the viewership of the CBC is cut in half since you took leadership in 2018. It's come down by half. So it's interesting to me that you're giving bonuses or performance awards when in fact the CBC is performing the poorest it's ever performed. So bonuses keep going up, they keep skyrocketing, but performance, as you say, the bonuses are granted based on.
I really, if I may, Madam Chair, I'd like to correct the record. If I may correct the record.
Ms. Tate, my question for you, for 2023, will you be given a bonus?
I would like to correct the record, if I may, Madam Chair. First of all, I don't believe the number was 16 million in last year. I'm going to ask Marco Dubé, who manages the people in culture at our company, to correct the error that the member has stated.
Sorry, Madam Chair, through you, I do have a question on the table, and that is, Ms. Tate, for 2023, will you be given a bonus?
I'm going to come back to your question after he corrects the record.
Madam Chair, I would ask you, through you, Madam Chair, the witness knows that her instructions here are to answer the questions that have been given.
Have 27
She can correct
seconds.
the record by sending in a written notice if she wishes.
You can do that, Ms. Tate. In fact, you've gone over time.
My time has been interrupted numerous times because the witness doesn't want to answer my question. It's very simple. Will she be given a bonus in 2023?
It's not my decision whether I get a bonus or not. Let's just be clear.
Thank you. That's enough time. To Ms. Thomas for 5 minutes, please.
Ms. Tate, I just looked online, and as CEO, it is your responsibility to determine who you would recommend for bonuses and how much. You recommend that to the board, and then the board can veto you, of course, if they wish to. Now, of course, if they were to do that, it would signal that they don't have confidence in your leadership. So I think, given the fact that they've extended your contract by 18 months, they probably would take your recommendation. So I'm just curious, it's coming up in 2 months. Will you be recommending that executive bonuses are given?
I will respond to that question as I have earlier, which is to say, if we achieve the results of the current fiscal year, I will recommend that the 1,140 unaffiliated, non-unionized employees receive their fair pay, their performance pay.
Their fair pay, their bonus pay. So you will be recommending then in 2 months' time that the executives receive a bonus?
If they achieve their targets.
Okay, so you already said earlier that targets were not met in previous years, and I also looked that up online, and that is in fact true. In fact, not only there were a number of targets that weren't met, and then the vast majority of targets were only partially met, and yet still bonuses were given. So how many targets have to be met in order for bonuses to be given this year? Fully met.
So we have a system where targets can be partially met, not met, or overachieved.
Yeah.
And we go through that system. We present this to the board. The board approves at the end of the year the performance of the organization. And
how many have to be completely met in order for the bonus to be given?
Well, I would suspect that some of it have to be completely met to have.
Some of it have to be completely met. So, Ms. Tate, you're the one that gives the recommendation. So, I'd like you to answer: will your recommendation be met on Will your recommendation be given based on some being met, 4 being met, 6 being met, 8 being met, all being met?
You understand the way it works. Let's say there are 7 performance indicators. Each one is awarded a percentage of the performance pay. So revenue, for example, is 20%. Revenue is a huge driver for the company. And so if we don't achieve revenue, we will not achieve the 20%. But that's not to say it goes to 0.
Okay.
That's what Marco is saying,
So
that there will be a lesser amount awarded. And to your question, I very much suspect that this year we will not meet our revenue target entirely, given my comments about the Quebec market.
So, Ms. Tate, what you're telling the committee then is that the decision has been made to cut 800 jobs. That announcement came out on December 4th, right before Christmas, which is a pretty harsh time of year to make that announcement. And what you have just told this committee is that there is still an intent to give bonus pay, whether all KPIs have been met or not.
First of all, the announcement in December was an estimate forecast should our financial situation not improve, and the majority of the cuts, and it's very clearly stated in the release, if the majority of the cuts will occur in the next fiscal year. We were giving a long runway in order to be able to improve. In fact, we are very focused as a management team on improving the results and reducing the cuts to the extent we can. The longer we have to work on a problem, the greater chance we have of achieving the result.
Ms. Tate, here's a few facts. Under your leadership, trust in the media, and especially in the CBC, has declined. Fewer Canadians are watching the CBC, and in fact, viewership has been cut in half since you took over in 2018. Ad revenue has plummeted. It's decreased by 31% from 2022 to 23. And the number of CBC staff earning a 6-digit salary has doubled. And then to add to that, in the last 2 years, just the last 2 years under your leadership, more than 100 correction notices have had to be issued with regards to stories put out by the CBC. In your estimation, have you met the KPIs and therefore deserve a bonus this year?
I think I said earlier, I actually am not subject to the short-term incentive plan of the rest of the corporation because
There's no performance bonus available to you?
I have a performance pay based on my objectives, which correspond obviously to the company's, but also to additional objectives
and in your estimation, have you met those metrics that are set out for you?
Absolutely, yes. What you have described are the industry trends. I do not control the number of Canadians that have left television to go online. And by the way, equal to the number declining on CBC television that you continue to report is an increase in millions that are watching GEM. So if you're measuring viewership, I think you need to look at the totality of the experience. And that is why, by the way, Madam Chair, we submitted some documents to help the committee understand the reality of the numbers. Today, only 11% of English Canadians watch television only. 23% of Francophones watch television only. In the English market, 34% of English are totally, solely online. We're dealing with market trends, so I do not think that I or any of the management team should be evaluated on market trends.
Thank you, Ms. Tate. I think I am allowing a lot of leeway here because it's a 2-hour meeting. We have another hour to go. So I'd like to get some answers to questions. But I would like to ask the answerers, the witnesses, and the questioners to be as short as you possibly can.